Straight from the edge, it's time for some daytime drama. So over on Y&R, JT has the ladies cornered in the cabin, and he essentially said how he escaped was that when they buried him in Chancellor Park, there was a storm drain or something, sewer system, and it collapsed through, maybe a ceramic or something, and I guess he escaped through the storm system and didn't die that way. And they were all obviously grateful that he hadn't died, but they were pleading their case to, let them go, and he was obviously trying to kill Victoria, and Nikki had to stop him. So obviously they passed out from the gas, and luckily Phyllis and Billy were right outside the cabin. So Billy had driven there, and Phyllis had followed because she knew that they had escaped, and she went to go see if they'd gone to Victoria's and found Billy there, and she followed him from there, and she's really wanting to help them any way she can after the whole courtroom battle. And so shortly after Billy and Phyllis are right outside the cabin, Victor, Nick, and Ray follow up behind, and they all get to the window, and they see that they're all passed out inside, and so they bust in the door and get him out of the gas. They pull JT out too, and there's the two security guards that are outside, and they're okay as well, I guess. And so they do end up taking, well, at first Billy gives mouth-to-mouth resuscitation to Victoria and chest compressions, and everyone seemed to be stabilized. And of course Ray called 911 to get ambulance and police, and they take JT to the hospital. All of the group end up going to the police station, and of course Christine comes and is essentially trying to figure out what's going on, and Ray essentially says that he had orchestrated the entire thing because he knew enough info that JT was still out there, and he couldn't let the injustice stand that they were headed off to prison. And so Christine tells Ray to put him back into custody while she goes down to the courtroom to talk to the judge to essentially get everything dropped, because obviously JT's alive, and even though they had obstruction charges against them, those essentially got dropped because the department got egg all over their face from this thing, and their investigator, JT, obviously is alive, and they're going to have a lot more problems with that too. So, of course, you have Ray as a person of, justice and truth and honesty. He stepped over the line to help out, but Paul didn't quite see it that way, even though if you really look at it, Ray was brought in to clean up Paul's mess, and with the whole JT thing. So he's obviously skirting his responsibility off onto Ray, who fixed the whole thing. But this leads to Sharon. She comes back, and so Paul is like, "You think you deserve a job here after betraying our trust?" And she's like, well, you know me, I'm not really a liar, so. And he just kind of drops it and walks away. And then she's like, well, I'm not having none of this because you got rid of Ray, and he covered your ass. So she just basically badgers him again and says, well, fine, I'm out of here. I quit. And it was nice to see her stand up for Ray. And Nick is sort of doing it a little bit too, because he was pretty hard on him over the whole investigation, rightly so, but Ray did step up to the plate, to help out, mainly because of Sharon. So Ray, so Mia essentially tells Arturo that she wants Ray back and to put pressure on him to come back to her. Otherwise, she's blackmailing Arturo that she's gonna say they had an affair, and it was only 2 or 3 weeks before. And so Arturo's like, "You're not blackmailing me," and he basically tells Abby that he cheated on her. And of course, Abby just completely stunned and like, how is this even happening? Unbelievable. And she just wants him out of there, and she heads down to the Dark Horse. So she's up at Dark Horse Tower, heads down to the parking garage with a hammer, and just completely goes to town, smashing up his truck. So meanwhile, Mia had essentially confessed that she slept with Arturo to Ray because she wasn't getting her way, with the whole Sharon thing, and he just was done with her. And so he ends up at the parking garage too. So of course Abby's completely smashed the truck, and then Ray comes over and just punches his brother right in the face right afterwards, so he gets a double dose, and rightly so. And he didn't even really need to know what happened, but he said he knew about Mia. And so Abby had been, trying to work to get Kyle to go back to Lola. He's married Summer to get the liver, and both of them came out of the surgery fine. And he does end up going to talk to Lola, and he has the ring on, and she's not really noticing yet, and she's all excited to see him. And she kind of is like, well, you can kiss me, I'm not that hurt. And he starts to break down and say that the donor essentially is Summer, and to help make her feel more comfortable doing the donation, he had offered to marry her as essentially an extra incentive. And so Lola's taking this in, and she's obviously very grateful to Summer for giving her half of her liver, but in the process she realizes that she's lost Kyle. And so she's having some loss at the same time she's getting this great news. And Kyle's just really tearing up, and he's doing such a great job showing that he's torn between two women that he loves. And but he really says, I did this because I love you so much, and I just couldn't bear you to be gone, and knowing he could have done something. And so he's just completely torn. He really pulled it off really well. And after that, Lola did wheel herself over the next day to go see Summer to thank her for what she'd done, and say, I know what you got out of this with Kyle. And she wasn't too harsh on her. And Kyle, of course, came in and saw the two of them talking, and he's trying to figure out what to do. And of course, Lola's starting to leave, and he's kind of going with her a little bit, and she's like, no, you need to stay with your wife. And so he stays, and he ends up taking Summer home, and he crosses over the threshold. He picks her up because she's feeling pretty weak from having the surgery, and takes her inside. And of course, his dad is in there, and Abby's in there, and Abby's freshly broken up with Arturo, and she's riding pretty high from the whole post-breakup, I guess that adrenaline rush of beating up the truck. And of course, Jack, he's just trying to help celebrate, and they've got champagne out, and of course, they're trying to play it off a little bit like it was a honeymoon, because they haven't really told Jack yet, and Abby does know, but she's trying to entice her into drinking champagne, knowing full well that her liver would not be able to handle that. And so, Kyle takes Summer up to the room and comes back down to talk to his dad a little bit. And so his dad, Jack's like looking at him like, well, what's going on with this rush? I mean, she's not drinking. Is this a pregnancy? And he's not really connecting the dots, because you were in love with Abby and all this, you're in love with Lola, and so he does kind of break down and say that, about the liver transplant and how he'd offered to marry her, and so Jack's taking it in and trying to understand, and seeing what his son has, done for the two loves of a life, and he decides to go up and talk to Summer himself and get her take on it. And she really shows that she is really in love with Kyle, and this isn't something that she did out of anything other than that, and she really feels strongly. And so he really starts to see that there's a lot of different sides to this, and he does talk to Kyle after that and says, maybe he really doesn't want to see Summer as collateral damage out of this, and she's done a lot for him, and she really appears to love him. And so I definitely think Jack's right on the right track for giving good advice to Kyle. Like, as much as you're in love with Abby or Lola, you need to be with Summer, and trying to give him some fatherly advice. So Victoria did obviously have some feelings towards JT out of this whole thing. She saw him with a wounded head, and it turns out that he had a brain tumor. I was totally blown back that they were going to use that as a way to get him rehabilitated as a character where he can be on the show as more than a villain. I mean, I guess they're pulling a Franco here. But so anyway, JT had remorse. She went to see him at the hospital, and he's having remorse for all the actions he did, and he's trying to take responsibility, even though the pressure that was on his brain was leading him down a dark path, and he's still wanting some kind of future with her, but he's realizing that that's probably not possible. But they're trying to be there for each other and their son Reed, and of course Victoria leaves, and Billy's kind of right around the corner and trying to get some kind of read on her, because he obviously went to bat with Nick to try to get JT in the first place, and then he's kind of wanting to comfort her and give her some sense of stability, but she's had so much trauma, she just really is like, I can't do this. But it was a nice exchange. Jason was really trying to pull all that angle together in the character, and but yeah, nice little exchange. So the only other thing was Victor going to town at the police station and just giving the riot act to Christine, and this isn't going to go essentially unchecked, that you had this witch hunt sort of thing going on, and it blew up in everyone's face, and luckily Ray had helped out, but otherwise it would have been a complete disaster, everyone in prison, and just... So anyway, over on GH, so the whole bridge sequence where, Jason had shot Ryan, jumped over, Ryan jumped over and Ava got pulled back up. So Ava and Laura kind of got left at the bridge, and it's sinking in, that this is Ryan, and the realization that he had killed her daughter, Kiki Jerome, was just totally devastating. And Maura, veteran actress, you just really pull it all together there, showing that sudden rock hitting, in your stomach, where you knew that this guy had completely deceived you and had slept with you a couple hours after he'd killed your daughter. And it just the emotional, it was very well. Definitely a nomination should be in there somewhere. And even Jeannie Francis, Laura, you comforting her, even though you kind of were at odds. You were in love with the same man you thought, Kevin, but turns out it wasn't, and it was Ryan. And she really was trying to comfort her in any way she could, knowing what had happened to her daughter and the complete devastation. And she had tried to help Carly, so she knew she had some moral compass in there to help. And she offered her a ride back to Port Charles. And of course, Ava's just having a complete meltdown, drinking and trying to beat herself up as much as she can, because she feels responsible that she didn't detect this person in her life, and had confided in Ryan, saying, that she wanted revenge on her daughter for having slept with Dr. Monroe. And obviously he's completely psycho, and he kills the daughter. And so she's blaming herself for even putting the thought into his head. And so she's down at Pier 55 and drinking, and Laura's trying to help her there. And it seems like Laura had talked to Monroe, or somebody had, to try to get him to, help out Ava, because they're both just devastated over Kiki's loss, and they're the only two that were that close to her. So he did end up going down. Well, it seems like Kevin is devastated as well, because his brother had killed all these people on his watch, and he hadn't told the police about it. And so he is trying to beat himself up as well for having let this happen, he thinks. And he's down at Pier 55, and he's walking, and of course Monroe comes out of nowhere and just decks him and is beating on him, and just totally angry with him for having let this happen. And of course Ava comes up and tries to stop him, because she's worried about Monroe and Kevin, because she realizes what the situation is. And so the police end up arresting Kevin, thinking that it's Ryan, and almost gets a disorderly conduct for public drunkenness for Ava. And of course Kevin gets it kind of dealt with so that she doesn't get in trouble. But he goes to jail, and of course Laura had been talking with the commissioner and the DA, and they really want charges on somebody because they don't have Ryan. So we'll pin it on Kevin for him not bringing forward what his role was in this. And so he, of course, wants to beat himself up. So he just essentially confesses everything he's done to not notifying the police of his brother's whereabouts. And so Monroe, of course, he goes to the hospital to get his hand fixed, and he can't even write. And he essentially signs his resignation, and he's totally done. He needs to just go off and do some soul searching. And let's see. So, I mean, Matt Cohen, you know, you did a great job on the show. Great exit. I mean, you really put out a lot of character development on there. Hope to see you back someday or somewhere else. So, yeah, the leaving of Griffin obviously led Anna to have a little bit of a meltdown because she's feeling like she lost a son. And so Peter August, her actual son, is kind of comforting her, but feeling a little bit jealous because he's never going to live up to the same kind of love, he thinks. And he's been abandoned, and he's not really able to forgive her, but they do end up going to Charlie's together, and they're trying to build a little bit of a forward relationship. And it was nice to see Anna try to be as motherly as she can, considering this guy's like 30 years old. Okay, so going over to Sam comes into Kelly's, and you know, she sees Brad with Wiley, and she's got Danny on her side coming in, and so she wants to, you know, pick up the baby, and baby pukes on her arm, and she of course is wanting to clean it off, and Brad says, well, I'll watch Danny and go in the bathroom and clean it up. Well, of course Shiloh comes in, and you know, of course she's trying to infiltrate the cult. And so she's trying to play it off like that she kind of trusts him being there, but really she doesn't want to leave Danny alone with Shiloh, knowing what he's capable of. But she does relent because Brad's there. Brad kind of, you know, steps up, oh, I'm here. And so she leaves to go to the restroom. Well, and of course, you see Jason outside Kelly's window, just eyes darting in, you know, the brow kind of down, and just like got the stiff jaw going, like completely like on this. So of course Sam comes out of the bathroom, Jason kind of comes into the cafe, and he sees this whole thing playing out, and you know, Shiloh's talking to his son, and he's just totally like, this is not gonna happen. And of course Sam's trying to play it off like, you know, oh, this is okay, because she's trying to, you know, buddy up with Shiloh and distance herself from Jason, you know, for Shiloh's head. And so so Jason just stiff as a board, you know, like not having this. And of course she kind of gets him to leave, and you know, she ends up talking with Shiloh and Brad and all that, and then everyone kind of starts to disperse, and the last person out is Shiloh, I think. And so, of course, Jason's waiting outside for him. And Shiloh, you know, kind of walks up to him. He's like, oh, I was kind of expecting this, you know, a little bit. And he starts talking to Jason. Jason's not really saying anything. And he starts going into, you know, I really like hanging out with, well, your ex-wife and your son. And he's talking to him about all these great things that, you know, they can do at the dawn of day, and talking about spending time with Jason's son. And Jason's just looking like, oh my God, he just wants to just strangle him right there. But he's, you know, he's stone cold. He's holding it all in and just observing, and just, he's got the eyes down, and Shiloh's, you know, right up in his face and talking to him and just, you know, belittling him and saying you're just full of all this anger, and you have this fear of loss of control. And he's just trying to push any button he can on Jason to see if he can get him to, you know, flip out. And of course, you know, Jason is stone cold. He's not gonna have this happen. So this goes on for 6 to 10 minutes or something like that. And at some point he's saying that he's going to be a part of Danny's life, and he ends up touching Jason just on the shoulder, and bam, Steve just lunges at him, grabs the neck, puts him against the wall, the brick wall behind him, and just the snap twitch muscles that, you know, he did just was so awesome to see. And, you know, Jason coming alive like that, I mean, Steve, you have it down like never before. I mean, you just keep bringing more and more and more to this character. It's amazing to watch. And Shiloh was so good at playing that sinister guy, like, so you had something to work off of. Nice to see. So, of course, the person working the cafe outside, they call 911. And, of course, Jason's completely calm and stays there, you know. So we got to backtrack just a little bit. So you have, obviously, Chase working to try to help Willow. So Willow had had a little run-in, you know, with Nina Reeves. So, I mean, Caitlin, you held your own with Michelle Stafford, a veteran actress. The two of you, when you played off each other, it just, it really worked really well. And, of course, you know, you had Valentine there, and Valentine and Nina were trying to talk about the daughter, Charlotte, and Willow's trying to say basically she's resigning, and all of this had played out before Shiloh had gotten there. And then, of course, Chase came after that and basically kind of got Shiloh out of there and saw what he was capable of, you know, with his mental possession, I guess, over Willow. And so he'd really worked with Willow, trying to get her to tell him everything about this guy, and, you know, I'm on this case. And so this is leading into basically him going to go talk to Jason and Shiloh at the cafe. So he doesn't know what's going on. He's get the call. He shows up and he's trying to get a read on everything from the waitress, and, you know, he's careful to get the details right so that he can help Jason as much as possible, because he knows that Shiloh's no good, and Jason might be able to help him get some more information, because it looks like he's protecting his family and all that from what he knows about Willow's case. So yeah, it was really nice. Obviously, they go to the police station. Chase is further interrogating both Shiloh, trying to get more details to help with Jason's case. And of course, Shiloh's acting like the little victim, and, you know, I don't know what happened. Like, he basically, I'm talking to him, and he just kind of snapped, you know, and he didn't go into the details quite yet about the touching of him, and he was able to get that out of him a little bit later, and that he basically, Jason had said nothing for all of this time, and yet you had kind of basically threatened him and made him feel cornered. So, of course, you had D.A. Dawson and Commissioner Ashford trying to figure out, you know, what they do about Jason, because Jason obviously has so much of a record, they want to get him on something. And, you know, Chase is like, he's going in the interrogation room saying to him, you know, if you can help me with Shiloh, I don't want you in prison for murder. I want you to help me get Shiloh and put him in prison, because, you know, he's threatening my girlfriend. He's obviously threatening your family in some capacity. Of course, Jason, you know, I want my lawyer, but once he starts seeing that Chase is maybe going to work with him, he, you know, Stone Cold doesn't even say anything. You know, Steve's just got that command of, like, the non-verbal communication down. He's like seeing, like, maybe you can work with this, but straight-faced. And so, of course, Sam is working with getting Shiloh to, you know, she buddied up. She'd seen this whole incident and tried to act like she's on Shiloh's side. You know, Jason's a little out of control. She goes to the hospital with Shiloh, and he's got his stitches. And, of course, she's trying to say, you know, that her son, you know, she doesn't want to deprive him of time with Jason. And he's like, well, he seems kind of out of control. And she's like, well, you know, Donna Day, you say that everyone deserves second chances, and you're trying to have peaceful resolution, non-violence, and, you know, and so he's thinking about it. And of course, you have Christina come up, and she's all flipping out, and she's telling essentially all of what Jason's capable of, and and Shiloh's listening to it, and Sam's trying to downplay it as much as she can and trying to say, what are you doing? And so Shiloh takes all of this in, and he ends up going down to the police station with Sam, and they, get D.A. Dawson and Commissioner Jordan Ashford to essentially drop the charges on Jason. So they get Jason out there, and Jason's just listening to this bull crap story that Shiloh has about, this, maybe I touched him and he felt threatened and everything, and he wanted to let it go. And so of course they're not wanting to do that, but they have no choice. And so they let him go. And of course, Jason goes over to the desk clerk and he's like, all right, here, I want my gun. And he gets out the gun, is cocking the, all back and everything, and checking the magazine, and he puts the gun. Of course, Shiloh's watching this, and everyone in the police station watches. He walks out, but just Steve, he did such a great job. He had maybe 3 lines, I don't know, in the whole police station sequence. Maybe. I don't even know if he had that. It might have been a couple words. And just, nothing needs to be said. You're just awesome. Totally awesome. And, yeah, so that was great. And he did have some eye contact. So Jason and Sam, I mean, Steve and Kelly, you have that down, the nonverbal communication with each other for all these years, and just you had so much expression just there. You didn't need to say anything, so that was an added layer going on, and nice to watch. Okay, so Dante is back, and he is struggling a little bit. He's had some nightmare about killing Lulu, so he's in this kind of almost robotic Terminator-like state, and he's in the dream. He's putting together his weapon, and he shoots Lulu with a silencer, and then he wakes up startled, and he sees his son comes in, and the son is kind of freaked out. Lulu comes in, and he's obviously not wanting to say anything about what he had in the dream. And they're getting ready because they have a surprise party that they're planning for him. So he leaves to go talk to his dad, and when he comes back, he's startled by all these people in the house, and you got all the people from the police department, trying to get him to come back, and all the family's there, and Lulu's, catching that nonverbal kind of communication. I mean, she knows her husband, and she's trying to figure out what's going on with him. And, Olivia, his mom, is set up the whole dinner, and she's trying to clean up, and Lulu's trying to say, oh, you don't need to, you can head out. And so she's starting to, cry a little bit, because she's been so worried about Dante, and not her son, it's her oldest son, but it was her only son for the longest time. And so she's, hugging him, and I mean, it's just a pleasure to see Lisa anytime you're on the show. You have so much emotional range, just a beautiful woman. I love having you on there. You need more screen time, and but you just showed off that motherly love, and just really nice, and just great little scene that you and Dominic had. And so after that, of course, Dante still struggling, and he ends up, I think it was the next day, he heads over to see his dad, and of course Mike's there, and Mike's having the memory, she's not really sure who Dante is at first, and so he decides, Dante's like, well, I want to get some lunch or whatever, and can the two of you join me? And so of course Sonny can't make it, and Dante's like, well, I'll take you, Mike, and we'll go get something to eat. And so he's talking with Mike, at down at the hotel, and he's basically kind of saying, he's having some kind of PTSD. He's not sure if he kind of feels brainwashed, or I guess you could say hypnosis. It almost seems like he's kind of is in an undercover mission he doesn't know about. So he's killed Raj, but maybe he did something more to him because, he got him in the organization, and, Dante sounds like maybe killed some people for this to make the cover seem plausible. And so he's all messed up, and he's saying, can I confide in you? And essentially Mike is like saying, of course, I can't really remember anything anyway, so we're both in the same kind of boat, and I probably won't be able to remember it anyway. And I mean, so even earlier, Max, Gail, you'd play that off so well when you didn't recognize Dante, and you were trying to come up with what was your name, and you said Dominic, which is actually Dante's real name. So that was a fun thing. The writers, whoever threw that in, great job. But yeah, so he's talking with Dante, and he's basically saying, I kind of can relate to this. I have Alzheimer's or whatever, and so Dante's really trying to express all this, and he's not sure whether he's going to do something, not even know about it. And so the two of them are going to get to connect, and I hope that they play this out a little bit, because it was kind of a little fun, and Max is getting to do some fun stuff with the character, and obviously Dominic is too. So we'll see how that all goes. Yeah, I think. Yeah, that's about it. So you got over on Bold, a ton of stuff happening. Brooke came home to find Taylor kissing Ridge, and of course, they've been down this road so many times that it's just it's old hat, I guess, in some respects, but she's not having none of that. So of course, she's right up in Taylor's face, just saying, I know about you trying to break up Liam and Hope, and she is saying, I am having none of this, and you've terrorized me, and all these years you're not doing it to my daughter. And she's poking Taylor in the head, like in her forehead, and of course Taylor's just batting her off kind of, and at some point Brooke, she even grabs her chin and everything, and Taylor's like completely like, yeah, she's in the wrong and thinks she's doing, but she's like, get your hands off me, like. But Catherine and Hunter, I mean, you two have been at this for so long that the command over your emotional animosity towards each other, just, it was so much fun to watch, and I hope you can keep it going a little bit longer in some other down the road. But that scene there, I think it took a day and a half to get through. You guys just, that was a lot of fun, and even though you've been down this road in other ways, you both deserve nominations right there for just the way you could do all that. And of course, Hope was connecting to Douglas. They're doing this shark thing or whatever out in the cabin where they're watching some cartoon thing, and what was I gonna say? Thomas is watching and seeing how motherly she is, and of course Douglas asks, will you be my mommy? And Hope's trying to like say, I can be there for you in any kind of way that I can, but that your mom is looking over you all the time. And so she's trying to really help him as much as she can, but not take the place of Caroline. And Thomas is watching all this and really seeing how nice it is to have somebody, a woman that can be motherly to his son. And then they come in to the main house, but of course Ridge is breaking up Taylor and Brooke from their little feud. And luckily he kind of broke it up before they walked in the room, because you don't want Douglas to see his grandma fighting with his, I guess, step grandma. And so of course Brooke is saying, well, get you a snack in the kitchen. And of course Taylor's like, oh, I can take care of that. And there was this little quip that, so Brooke said, well, you won't know where anything is in the kitchen to Taylor. And Taylor's like, I know the way you think. So like, she'll know where everything is. But just, you guys had so much fun there, and that was so great to watch. So Sally is trying to say farewell at Forrester. Very thankful for getting the opportunity to work on all the different lines, and she's getting this opportunity to go work over at Spencer with Wyatt, and Wyatt set this all up with Bill. So there's some problems that might occur over there, but she's still excited about it. And of course, Xander comes in, and he barges in and says that he has this great news, and they're having this meeting, and he's not really supposed to be there, but he shows photos of basically this pop singer or whatever that had seen them wearing out Sally's design. So Sally had made this athletic wear, and they were wearing it even though they weren't supposed to, and this pop star saw it, and she was interested or whatever. And so of course everyone's in the room all excited about this. So you got Ridge, and you got Brooke and Eric, and I think Quinn was in the room too. And so they're all, obviously they're seeing dollar signs out of this, and they're like, well, we need to try to keep Sally. So Ridge just quickly kind of comes up with this pitch, basically saying, you're going to get a lot more autonomy here. Stay on board with us. We're a full fashion house, worldwide, and we can offer you a lot more than you starting from the ground up over there with Bill, because Bill doesn't know what he's doing, and he's always got this, calling them the dressmakers over there, so he doesn't even really want to do it. So they're trying to make a pitch for it, and so of course she's thankful and realizing that, oh wow, like I'm in huge demand, and she's trying to downplay it a little bit, but like listening to what they have to say. And so of course afterward, Eric, Sally's left, and Eric's saying, well, as much as this is Wyatt's going to see this as good business, because we're just saying, it's just business and all that. Eric's like, well, I'm actually more concerned about Sally and Wyatt, like, because basically he really thinks they're great together, and they're great together, and he can pick up on that. So, and one of the main reasons that Sally's there in the first place was Wyatt had asked Eric if there was a spot Sally could get on, and she burned a lot of bridges, and Eric was the one that let her in the door. And he sees these qualities about this couple. So he's saying to Ridge, as much as this might be good for Forrester and for Sally, it might not be so good for Sally and Wyatt. So let's kind of let her talk to, obviously she went to go talk to Wyatt. And so of course Sally's about ready to walk in the door. Well, back up a second. So Flo had come up to talk to Wyatt to connect a little bit, and he's a little bit have an issue. I don't think his secretary's there, and the phone's going off, and she ends up helping a little bit. So maybe there's some foreshadowing that she might be working at Spencer to help out. They're a little short-handed. So Flo's looking very beautiful in there, and Wyatt's talking to her and trying to say she should stay in LA, and they had a lot of fun, the dinner party or whatnot, and she should stay and try to start to meet some people around there. And so of course you got Quinn coming in, and she's like, Flo, what are you doing here? She hadn't seen her since Vegas when they had left, and so she's you're the greatest thing that ever happened to Wyatt, and all these other girls don't compare. She's going on and on and on. Well, of course Sally's about ready to walk in. She hears all this, and she's about ready to just leave, and the door kind of opens a little bit, and they hear it, and And she walks in. Oh, hi, you know, I came in. I have this news, and so Wyatt, boom, you were on top of that. You realize what happened. Beautiful. You go up to Sally. You put your arm around her. You know, you're showing this is my woman here. I am backing her no matter what's going on here with Quinn and Flo. And he tells his mother, you are going to apologize for what you said because Sally and I are together. And that was such a beautiful scene. And of course, Quinn's just tongue-tied, like she doesn't want to do it, but she's, you know, on the next episode, she's going to be having to apologize there. She don't want to get in her son's bad graces there. And, you know, poor Flo got caught in that. I mean, she's not obviously trying to come between Sally and him. She was just kind of testing, like, where she needed to be. And maybe she shouldn't have been there, you know, but they are friends, so... But she kind of got caught in the middle, but it's just great that he came to the defense of Sally because that is who he loves, and I love that character. Those two characters, just keep them together. So, the only other thing I gotta say is when Sally is able to get this going, hopefully, you know, if the opportunity opens up at Forrester, they actually can call it Spectra, and you know. Let's get Coco on back over there. I mean, any of the other Spectras that were over at Forrester, you know, let's try to open this up, get some characters back, get some more fun stuff going. Once Sally can figure out where this is going to be, you can really open this story up. And I am excited. So, anyway, there's about 3,200 drops out there, so keep researching.